Inflation is up everywhere, and it has begun to bum a lot of people, myself included, out. I feel like there's a $50 fee just for leaving my house. One study showed that inflation is costing Americans $341 more per month. That's $4,092 a year. Here in the United States, inflation hit a 40-year high in March 2022 at 8.5%, and April 2022 showed only a teeny tiny decrease to 8.3%. Over on TikTok, I have got a lot of people in my comments saying how their groceries are doubling or even tripling for certain items. Gas is up, housing is an absolute nightmare, as I've already talked about on this channel. So what are we supposed to do? I'm going to lay out a guide for you to manage inflation on a personal level. Before I dive into that, I do just want to say, of course, inflation is not your fault as an individual. It's not my fault as an individual. And we can't take any moves in our day-to-day life to change this. That does need to happen at a higher political level. However, if you're just worried about trying to save money at the grocery store or make sure that you can pay your bills this month, hopefully this guide will help you do your budgeting. So first of all, what is inflation? And why is it so high right now? Inflation, simply put, is the value of money going down. Now that's really easy to confuse with things getting more expensive, but they're not exactly the same thing. Think about it this way. Have you ever talked to maybe your grandparents or just an older person about what things cost back in their day? I absolutely have. My grandmother likes to tell me how she was able to take a bus to the movie theater, buy a candy, buy a movie ticket, and bus home for 25 cents. The whole journey, 25 cents, which just like, what? Like now a movie ticket is 25 bucks. And this is a really good example of inflation because it shows us that what a dollar used to buy, it no longer buys, aka a dollar or a quarter in this story I'm sharing is not worth as much as it once was. And right now inflation is so high because of high consumer demand, low supply chain access, moves that the Federal Reserve has made ever since COVID arrived on the scene, and corporate greed. Since COVID has so thoroughly disrupted the supply chain across the world, we have seen basically a backlog in every single sector of goods. I mean, remember when wood and lumber was the most expensive thing in the world? And at the same time, we've seen a lot of people turn to shopping, particularly online shopping, as a diversion from the pandemic and the general state of the world. That in turn is pushing the demand up while at a time that the supply is really low. Add into that the Federal Reserve in March 2020 started buying a ton of treasury bonds, which increased the flow of cash in our society. If you remember back in March 2020, a lot of people started losing jobs. A lot of people stopped going to work because, there was a deadly pandemic and we couldn't really leave our houses. That meant that all of the money that we as consumers normally pushed into the economy wasn't getting into the economy. So the Federal Reserve was like, hey, we're going to buy all these treasury bonds, which will increase the flow of cash and will help buffer against this kind of like downturn. And it did. It was a very effective thing. But now there's all this extra cash in our society that wasn't here 2.5 years ago, and that is increasing inflation. The final cherry on top here is corporate greed. We've got a lot of companies increasing the price of their products, not because the company is doing poorly. In fact, a lot of the major corporations like Kellogg's are breaking record profits, but they're still increasing the cost of their goods at the grocery store, which is making it more expensive for you and I. If you're a millennial, let me know in the comments if you feel like I feel, which is that it's like every 3 years we're faced with a new once-in-a-lifetime crisis. It's just kind of the millennial curse of, wow, again, really? Okay, here we go. I can't predict the future, but I can tell you what other people are saying that makes them think that inflation will go higher. And I can also tell you what people are saying that makes them think inflation will lessen. Let's start with what people think will keep inflation up for the next couple of months at least. The war in Ukraine is continuing to limit oil and gas supplies around the world, as well as grain supplies. We have supply chain issues due to COVID that are expected to continue. Companies are refusing to pay for certain necessary positions, such as a truck driver or a dock worker, and that is leading to worker shortages. And COVID outbreaks are still happening. All of these things say, yeah, inflation is here to stay. But here are some reasons why inflation may go down. The US Federal Reserve is raising interest rates and slowing their purchase of treasury bonds. Higher interest rates make borrowing money more expensive, aka it means things like mortgages or car loans are going to cost you more. The Fed is hoping that this will slow the demand and give the supply chain a chance to catch up. Reducing bond purchases also means less money flowing into the economy, which should make the value of $1 increase. Now, this is really important. An inflation slowdown or decrease does not necessarily mean that prices will fall. And I know you're like, ugh, why? What do we need to do to get prices to fall? An inflation decrease simply means that prices won't rise as fast as they have been rising. For prices to actively decrease, we'd need to enter what is known as a deflation stage. Deflation is generally seen by most economists as a bad thing because just like inflation, it affects everything from wages to the stock market to the cost of things. Except with inflation, things are going up, and with deflation, things are going down. The government and economists, and really most of us in general, we don't want the stock market to go down, right? Because that negatively impacts our portfolios and our holdings. But we do want the cost of goods to go down so that we have more cash in our wallets. I personally think a little bit of deflation is exactly what we need because prices have gone up so fast, so quickly in every single area, and we really, really need them to stop and actively reverse. A lot of Americans can no longer afford the basics. People have less cash than they did before the pandemic because prices have gotten so expensive in the last 6 months. Before I get into my list of tips here, if you have any ways that you are saving money right now, drop them in the comments so that we can all save together. Solidarity, babes. Combining a high-interest debt with high inflation is a guaranteed budget killer. I consider anything over 5% to be a high interest rate, and credit cards are most likely to come with those really high rates, anywhere between 15 and 30%. Like, I have a really good credit score, and I have a credit card that's at like 26% interest right now. It's wild. You can apply for a 0% interest credit card and transfer your balance from a high interest debt to this 0% interest debt, and that can save you hundreds in interest over months. I will link a few 0% credit cards for you in the description below. Please note the 0% interest is always a temporary offer, so please make sure you're able to make your monthly payments in full before you go around opening more credit cards. We don't want to ding your credit score for nothing. The time frame for a 0% interest offer can be anywhere from 3 months to 18 months, depending on your credit score. Number 2, stop using crappy banks. All of the major banks like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Charles Schwab, all of them currently offer 0.01% interest on savings accounts. That is nothing. Even if inflation wasn't super high, that would be nothing. So stop leaving your money in these accounts that do nothing for you. We need your money to be working for you, not working actively against you. Ally Bank has a 0.6% interest rate on their savings accounts right now, and they're going up since federal interest rates are going up. Amalgamated Bank also offers a 0.4% interest on their savings accounts right now, and it's a union-owned bank. We love a more ethical banking option. I will link to both of these banks below. I will also include a blog post that we have on more ethical banking options if you're interested in switching out of these big baddies in general. 3, save on recurring expenses. There are things that we use daily, weekly, or monthly that we can't give up, but we might be able to make them cheaper. You can pry Netflix from my cold dead hands. I love television and there's no way I'm trying to live without it. I'm not willing to cut it out of my budget entirely. I am, however, willing to pay less in order to continue to enjoy my television binges. If you're paying for cable or for several streaming services, this is an area that you too can cut back in. So if you have cable, for example, give them a call and try and negotiate a lower rate for a set period of time, 3 months, 6 months, something like that. Or see if you can cut some of the channels that you're not regularly watching so that you lower your overall total. If you're a streamer like me, try password sharing. Right now I live with a roommate. She actually pays for Netflix while my partner and I pay for Peacock. So that way, she only has Netflix on her bill, we only have Peacock on our bill, but we get the best of both worlds. You can password share with someone who is not in your home as well. You don't have to live with a roommate in order to utilize this. Similarly, you might want to pull back on costs that you can replicate for free. If you have a gym membership that you're paying for right now, you might want to put that on pause and try doing at-home workouts with YouTube. Remember what I say a lot around here, money is creative. These are just a few ideas to kind of get that creative juices flowing for you. Just because you have been doing something for a while doesn't mean you need to continue doing that. With new circumstances, we try new solutions. And finally, invest. Yes, I know the market is down more often than not right now, and I know it's a bummer. I know it's not encouraging to put money into the market and then watch it immediately fall. Like, that's not a win for anyone, right? I get that, I understand that. However, and this is a big however, investing is still one of the best ways to put your money to work for you. And I'm encouraging you to invest to manage inflation because of one major thing. Investing is purchasing an asset. Everything else I've just mentioned is fundamentally managing the symptoms of inflation. We're just trying to react to the reality of inflation. However, since investing is purchasing an asset, yes, even though the price and the value of the asset is down right now, what you are doing is giving your money the long-term chance to pass inflation in terms of return. Because cutting back on your spending or using a temporary 0% interest rate on a credit card, these are all short-term measures. But buying an asset that you're going to hold for the next 20 or 30 years is a long-term measure for wealth. Because your asset right now might be down, but it has the potential to go up. And every single bear market, meaning every single time the market was down, it has recovered. Every single time. So right now, if you have extra money in your budget to be investing, consider the stock market to be on sale. I love buying clothes on sale. I love buying food on sale. So of course, I love buying stocks on sale. Holding the assets through market lows like right now so that you can get to the market highs when they are earning you money is exactly the strategy that investing legends like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have been talking about for years. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. What else are you doing to try and manage inflation? Definitely let me know in the comments. And if you have any other ideas for earning more money or making good investment choices, also drop that in the comments. I always want to learn with y'all. Give this video a thumbs up if you learned something and hit subscribe.